Hello, welcome to Love Lust Betrayal. Subscribe if you like our stories. Let's dive into the story. At a party, my wife's drunken kiss with her affair partner left everyone speechless. Her reaction was unbelievable. It all started at a friend's birthday party, one of those events you attend more out of obligation than excitement. My wife and I had been invited weeks ago, and although I wasn't particularly looking forward to it, she seemed eager. She spent hours getting ready, choosing the perfect dress and meticulously doing her makeup. I couldn't help but admire how stunning she looked when she walked out of the bedroom. Her excitement was contagious, and for a moment, I thought maybe this night would be more enjoyable than I had anticipated. The party was in full swing by the time we arrived. Music blared from the speakers, laughter filled the air, and the scent of appetizers wafted through the room. My wife greeted everyone warmly, her charm on full display. She was the life of the party, as always, mingling effortlessly, laughing at jokes and making everyone feel at ease. I, on the other hand, stuck to the quieter corners of the room, catching up with a few friends but mostly observing. I noticed she was drinking more than usual. It wasn't alarming at first. Just a glass of wine here, a cocktail there. She was having fun, and I didn't want to be the kind of husband who micromanages his wife's enjoyment. After all, we were here to relax and celebrate. But as the night went on, her laughter grew louder, her movements more animated. She wasn't just tipsy. She was undeniably drunk. At one point, I lost track of her. I assumed she was somewhere in the crowd, probably chatting with people I didn't know well. I continued my conversation with an old college friend, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't until I saw her near the bar that my unease grew. She wasn't alone. She was talking to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, with an air of confidence that seemed almost smug. At first glance, I assumed he was just another partygoer, a harmless acquaintance. But as I watched them interact, something felt off. The way she leaned toward him, how she tilted her head and laughed at whatever he was saying, it was too familiar, too intimate. I tried to shake off my doubts, convincing myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was a coworker or an old friend she hadn't mentioned. But then came the subtle touches. His hand brushed her arm as he handed her a drink. She didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled and took a sip, her eyes lingering on him a moment too long. My stomach churned. I wanted to intervene, to walk over and assert my presence, but I hesitated. What would I even say? I didn't want to cause a scene, especially not at someone else's party. So I stayed where I was, watching from a distance and trying to convince myself that it was all innocent. The party continued around me, but I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I glanced in her direction, she was still with him. They moved to different parts of the room, always close, always engrossed in conversation. My friends tried to engage me in small talk, but I barely responded. My mind was racing, filled with scenarios I didn't want to believe. Then it happened. I was standing across the room, pretending to listen to someone talk about their latest vacation, when I saw her grab another drink. She stumbled slightly as she turned, her movements unsteady. She was clearly drunk, her usual grace replaced with clumsy enthusiasm. She laughed loudly at something he said, and then, without hesitation, she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't just a casual peck on the cheek. It was deliberate, intimate, and completely inappropriate. Her arms rested on his shoulders, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world had stopped. My heart sank, a heavy weight settling in my chest. My hands clenched into fists, the urge to march over there and confront them almost overwhelming. The room around me seemed to freeze. Conversations faltered, and people glanced in their direction, some pretending not to notice, others staring outright. The man looked surprised at first but didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned into the kiss, his hands resting lightly on her waist. When she finally pulled back, her face was flushed, either from the alcohol or the realization of what she had just done. Her gaze shifted, and then she saw me. The color drained from her face, her eyes wide with shock and guilt. It was as if she had forgotten I was there, forgotten that her husband was just a few feet away, watching the entire thing unfold. The man she kissed turned to look at me as well, his expression a mix of confusion and regret. He stepped back, putting some distance between them as if that would somehow lessen the impact of what had just happened. The room buzzed with murmurs, people whispering to each other and stealing glances at me. I stood frozen, unsure of what to do. My mind raced with questions and emotions. Anger, betrayal, humiliation. How could she do this to me, and in front of everyone? My wife, the woman I trusted, the person I thought I knew better than anyone, had just kissed another man in front of an entire party of our friends and acquaintances. She took a hesitant step toward me, her lips trembling as if she was about to say something, but I couldn't bear to hear whatever excuse or apology she was about to offer. Without a word, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, surrounded by the weight of her actions and the judgment of everyone around her. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap to the face. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more painful than the last. How long has this been going on? Who was that guy? And why did she feel so comfortable betraying me so openly? I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted to escape the crushing weight of what I had just witnessed. As I stood there, trying to calm my racing heart, I could hear the faint sounds of the party continuing inside. Laughter, music, and the occasional burst of chatter filled the night, as if nothing had happened. But for me, everything had changed at that moment. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we shared, all of it felt like a lie. And there she was, standing at the door, her face streaked with tears. She called out to me, her voice shaking with desperation. "Please let me explain," she cried, but I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. Not yet. I stood there, frozen in disbelief, staring at the woman I thought I knew. She tried to compose herself, stumbling toward me, slurring, "It's not what it looks like." But what excuse could justify what I had just witnessed? I didn't say a word. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, the center of everyone's attention. Outside, I struggled to calm my racing thoughts. Who was that guy? How long had this been going on? And how could she do this to me, knowing I was right there? Minutes later, she followed me out, tears streaming down her face. She begged me to listen, saying she was drunk and didn't mean it. But her words felt hollow. "Drunk or not, you knew what you were doing," I said, finally breaking my silence. "How long has this been happening?" She hesitated, avoiding eye contact. That pause said it all. This wasn't a one-time mistake. I pressed her for answers and she eventually admitted that he was someone from her office, someone she had been close with for a while. My chest felt like it was about to explode with anger and heartbreak. I couldn't believe the woman I had trusted and loved had done this, right in front of me, as if my feelings didn't matter. The worst part wasn't even the kiss, it was the audacity to do it so publicly, knowing full well that I was watching. I told her I needed time to think, to process what had just happened. That night, I packed a bag and stayed at a hotel. The following days were filled with silence and reflection. She tried to call and text but I wasn't ready to face her yet. How do you forgive someone who not only betrays you but does so in the most humiliating way possible? This wasn't just a mistake, it was a deliberate act of disrespect, and I wasn't sure if our marriage could survive it. Thanks for watching, subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.